Help KZOM Radio build towards the future. We are currently looking to expand our network and need all the help and support we can get. Please visit kzomradio.com/fundraising for details.
Howdy, all you zombie fans. Welcome back to another great week here on the Zurvivalist. This is episode 7 of season 4, and we are back this time with Sam from South Carolina. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. Okay, so you were emailing me saying you have a great zombie plan. I want to hear it.
A good one, we'll say that.
A good one, okay. Well, we'll definitely go through it. So, how would you survive a zombie outbreak?
A lot of the people that write in, they have a lot of stored food, goods, gear, and that's great. But I know my luck isn't always that good. I got a feeling if something like this ever happened, I'd wind up stranded out in the middle of nowhere with just the clothes on my back, no car, nothing, on foot, more than likely.
I think most people would actually end up like that.
Yeah. So my goal is pretty much, if I have absolutely nothing and I'm just completely stranded, how do I get out of the city? Because that's my main goal. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, and it's the largest city in South Carolina, and it's got one of the largest populations, and we're also next to one of the largest military training sites in the entire United States. So at first thing, it sounds like it's a good idea, but it means it's going to be drawing people in from all over the state and possibly other states to try to seek refuge, I guess.
Well, looking
at a lot of people are going to be coming. There'll be like an influx, I think.
Perhaps because the military base would definitely give you an influx. People will be coming for safety. It looks like you've got like about 130,000 population. So, you know, people would maybe be flocking at first, but it may not be very safe for long. Are you in what part of town are you in? Like, are you in a suburb area, more of a downtown area?
I am dead center. I'm about 3 miles from the Capitol building.
Okay, so would you say you're by the university?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at a map of it right now. What about the river? Would the river be a good escape route if you were That's
my exact plan. My goal would be, if I'm on foot, I'm just going to try. I can walk about. I walk about 3 miles every day anyway, and about 10 to 12 on weekends. So I'm okay on foot. My goal would be to walk down Blossom Street, across the bridge, which is slightly less used than the main streets. There's a grocery store and a hardware store on the way past, but honestly, I don't think I'd be able to set foot in them because I'm pretty sure pandemonium would have already taken over. So I had an idea a few months ago. I was sort of got dragged into an antique store, and after I got past all the ceramic stuff and doilies up front, I went in the back, and it was like a survivalist dream. There's just axes and hammers and hatchets and crowbars from the farming community nearby. So I think a lot of people would just completely bypass that.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think a lot of people would, because in the moment of panic, they would go, "We don't need no doilies," and they would just take off towards someplace else, and that would be a nice little cache of gear for you to use. So let's say you got the gear, and you're on foot. How would you get out of the city? Because eventually you'd have to get out of the city.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing, I would actually head towards the State Museum, because it's not only, I think it's got a backup generator, it would have medical supplies, it's got a gift shop, and it's literally next to the river. So I think I could go in there, hold up for a day or two to at least find out what the situation is going to be. Odds are there's going to be some security and staff, and there's probably going to be some sort of refugee center for at least a little while. But my biggest goal would be to just, if the place became overrun, I would actually leave the museum, go across the street on the other side of the river, and they actually have a place that rents inner tubes and rafts for where people tube during the summers.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal would actually be to grab one of the rafts and travel downstream.
Where would you, what about, I know the museum seems like a pretty good idea, but don't you think it'd be probably best if you already assume that it's going to be overrun in general to just get out before the pandemonium hits?
it would literally be a day or two at max, and then it wouldn't be safe to stay there any longer.
So you would inner tube down. Now, would you you'd go past Granby Park and what looks like the Olympia Cemetery?
Mm.
How far down would you go?
Honestly, it's a pretty mild course because it's very popular for tubing. So you can go 30 or 40 miles, and then I'd probably have to ditch the raft and go on foot from there. But by then, I would actually be out of Columbia's limits. You'd be near Casey or one of the other suburbs.
Well, it looks like the river goes right through Congaree National Park.
Yes.
Would you try to go there?
Absolutely. They've got campgrounds. They have some water fishing, and I don't think there would be a lot of people there, at least not right away. And by the time people did show up, it would be other survivors that were thinking the same thing as you, so they might be safer people to be around.
Now, what about, could you live off the land? Like, can you fish and hunt and all that stuff?
I've been fishing since I was about 6 years old, so I could make a pretty good go of it. I'm not necessarily a very skilled hunter, and honestly, I have no experience with guns, so they wouldn't even be an option for me.
Okay. So it looks, because I am unfamiliar with that part of the country. I've never been there. Would that be a long-term solution for you, or would you like still try to go someplace like, a little south of there, Lake Menin, it looks like, is a pretty good...
Well, if you keep going south, it'll actually take you all the way down to the coast of Charleston. But that might not be much of a better solution than Columbia because it's going to be equally crowded with people. But there are a few small islands, like in the Lake Moultrie and others along the channel. I think it wouldn't be a permanent solution, but it would be a nice temporary stop for at least a few days to get your bearings, to like replenish water supply, stuff like that.
And hopefully not get eaten by anyone who's, dead, or killed by anyone who's alive. What about, like, have you given thoughts to any long-term scenarios, like what you would want to do? Like, is there a place where, like, I always kind of like to ask the question, if you get, it's like we've seen this in Walking Dead and 28 Days Later, if a beacon comes on and is like, come here, come to, North Charleston, and we have, like a FEMA camp, it's safe here, would you make that attempt, or would you be like, nah, screw that, I don't want to go where there's a lot of people?
Honestly, it would probably be a terrible idea, but I actually think we have a quarantine zone up near Charleston because it's such a large port city. So that might be an actual issue, but I would probably avoid it. Probably.
It'd probably be for the best. It looks like there's a lot of small areas where you'd be able to like live off the land near there, more rural and out of the way.
And because it's along the lakeside, there would be a number of cabins and other small apartment complexes that might be livable for at least a small period of time.
But what about?
I don't think I'd stay in any.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't think I'd stay in any one place for very long.
Well, eventually you'd have to, because eventually you'd still have to find a way to settle down and to really kind of like, you can't just keep running forever. It's just, we're not like that. Is there a place where you'd like you think would be safe, and so you'd want to make that trek just to be sure?
Honestly, there are. If you're, I might go up the coast near Cape Fear, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a bit of a hike, but that might be a nice destination eventually, because it's a nice cut-off aquatic community, I think.
And that would at least give you the opportunity to it's definitely a destination. But I guess, what about other survivors? Do you plan on doing this alone, or would you take family, friends, girlfriend, wife, that kind of thing?
Honestly, the number of friends you have would vary the plan a lot. If you had a lot of people with you, your best bet would actually be just to try to find like a tract of land somewhere with a small cabin somewhere and just live in shifts, sort of thing. Most of my family lives far enough away to where I doubt I'd be able to get in touch with them, but in terms of other groups of people, I think
Well, I mean, at least to give you, you kind of have a plan in mind for what you would do with people, and you know where you would go in case of the attack, and you have a solid plan to at least get out of the city, so your chances of survival, escalate because or elevate because you are not going to be where there's a lot of people. So that's always good. But I guess we are running out of time. So let me just ask you the last question I ask everyone is, what would you do if you were bitten?
One thing I've always wanted to do, it would depend on how long it took, whether it was minutes or hours or days, but I would basically rig up some kind of, whether it's an air horn or a siren or something, draw as many of them as I could, maybe try to lure them all into one place, like a house or an apartment complex, see if I couldn't rig the door to slam behind the place, and then, like, if I had a weapon, end myself and burn the place down, take out as many of them I could to keep other people safe.
Well, going out in a blaze of glory is always a good answer.
Literal sense.
I think a lot of people would they want to do that because they help everyone else out. So that is always good. Well, thank you very much, Sam, for being here.
No, my pleasure.
And for all of you guys listening at home, tune in next week for another episode of The Zurvivalist. You can find us at at Zurvivalist.com or kzomradio.com, Twitter at KZOM, or Facebook.com/KZOM. Just Google KZOM, you'll find it. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Zurvivalist. Have a great day.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by MyGoldenRewards.com. It's time to free yourself from debt, and not with lame internet schemes, but with real opportunities. Visit MyGoldenRewards.com today and see how much your life can change. See how much